Well, 20 years ago, the D.C. snipers terrorized our community, and now one of them is appealing his life sentence. Lee Boyd Malvo was 17 years old when he helped commit the string of shootings in D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. 10 people were killed. Now, Malvo is serving multiple life terms without parole. He pled guilty to 6 murders in Montgomery County. And Malvo's attorneys appeared in the Maryland Court of Appeals today asking for a reduced sentence. They argue his life without parole is unconstitutional. His team cites a 2012 Supreme Court ruling that banned them from juveniles. Now, the state wants the court to deny Malvo's request. And tonight, we're giving you an inside look at the evidence and the investigation from an ATF agent who helped put an end to that killing spree. Investigative reporter Laura Geller has this story.
We have a level of fear that we're not used to.
It's kind of unsafe right now. I never thought anything like this would happen around our neighborhood.
We're scared to come to work.
Were you scared?
Yes. You go out in the morning, you don't never know if you're going to make it back.
I can't remember the chapter that I read in my book the day before or what I had for breakfast, but this case comes back with an instant memory of the victims and the dates and the evidence.
The killer or killers feel no remorse.
In 2002, April Carroll was a special agent for the ATF. On the 4th day of the Beltway sniper shootings, she was assigned to the primary investigative team.
Every time there was another shooting, it was a really sick, unexplainable feeling, really just, oh my God, we have to catch these guys. We can't have more killings and more shootings.
It was a feeling shared across the DMV as 2 snipers, John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo, terrorized the area.
There was a lot of pressure with this case.
In all, 10 people in Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. were gunned down, multiple others seriously wounded. They were going about their daily lives, pumping gas, shopping, mowing the grass, reading a book.
That made it so real that anyone was truly a victim, target, potentially.
For 3 weeks, Carroll and the team followed up on the thousands of tips called in by citizens.
We had whiteboards where we would keep the priority leads and the priority targets, and then there'd be another shooting, and it was like, okay, well, that whiteboard's now not in play. We got to start a new one.
Carroll says a call from one of the snipers gave them their big break. He didn't give his name, but it was 17-year-old Lee Boyd Malvo. He told law enforcement in Montgomery County he and Muhammad were responsible for an earlier shooting in Montgomery, Alabama. Law enforcement there had a catalog with a fingerprint that was dropped at the scene, but there were no matches for it in the Alabama state system.
I think it was an FBI agent that hand carried it to us, and we ran that, and we got Lee Boyd Malvo, who had been fingerprinted by the INS earlier that year.
It was another call, this time from a friend of John Allen Muhammad, which Carroll says led to his identification. Here's how she remembers the conversation.
I really hate to say this, but I think your shooter could be a friend of mine from the Army. And we said, did you ever meet him in the companionship of someone named Lee Boyd Malvo? And he said, well, he had a companion with him that fits that description, but his nickname was Sniper. And we sent that man a photograph of Malvo because we had just identified him, and he said, yes, that's him. And we felt like, okay, now we have him.
Investigators then identified the Chevy Caprice the snipers were driving and released the license plate number to the media. Leads that once didn't mean anything started to bring the case together. The end of the crime spree came with one last call, this time from a refrigerator repairman at a rest stop in Myersville, Maryland.
He kept the notes on that license plate, and when he saw it, he called in. That's how we found him.
Malvo was supposed to be keeping watch at that time, but fortunately, he fell asleep in the car. Carroll says the snipers were always locked and loaded. ATF produced this video to demonstrate how detectives believe the suspects used that Caprice as a killing machine.
There's no doubt in my mind if they'd have heard law enforcement approaching that it would have been a gunfight.
3 weeks of fear for our area came to an end with the arrest of Muhammad and Malvo. This memorial honors those they killed. April Carroll would spend the next 7 years of her life dedicated to this case, assigned as team leader to the prosecution task force and attending Muhammad's 2009 execution with the families of the victims.
No matter what age you were, you'll remember this, I think, for a lifetime.
Laura Geller, WUSA 9.
Now, Carol was transferred to the Montgomery County Task Force the day 13-year-old Aaron Brown was shot by the snipers. He survived. Now, in their notes, the snipers threatened to hurt more children. Carol is not only an ATF agent, but a mom, and she had 3 young kids at the time, so she tells Laura that was particularly difficult for her.